Hey, Restorers, welcome to a fresh episode of the Restoration Today podcast. I have a great returning guest with me today, probably a very familiar face to those of you who are watching via video. And if you're listening in, I'm curious if you'll be able to guess the voice. Like maybe I don't even tee up who this is. Maybe I just have them start speaking and see if you can pick out who they are. Although I don't know what he would say if I tossed it over to him. So, okay, I guess I'm not going to do that. I have Paul Donald here with me from Encircle. They are celebrating 14 years. So happy birthday to Encircle. They've been in the industry for a while and lots of evolution there. And I've gotten to know Paul over the years that I've been in the industry, and I wanted to just bring him in and have a chat about the evolution of Encircle itself, and then about kind of what he's seen change in the industry over that 14-year period, how technology has changed. There's a lot that's changed in the industry, I'm sure, in that period of time, and we've been through a lot. So, Paul, welcome. Thank you for being here. So, for people that don't know you, go ahead and kind of introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, Michelle. And it's 12 years. We're going to be at
Oh,
14 soon, but we just passed 12 years.
well, sorry.
And no worries. Um, it's been a great journey. So a little bit of background on me. I've built four technology companies over uh, 37 years. Yeah, 37 years. I spent a decade at this little company called BlackBerry. I don't know if anybody's seen the movie, but don't believe everything you see there. It's a parody, but lots of fun. I've had the privilege of working with some brilliant individuals over that time, and I'll tell you, I'm having a lot of fun with my current team at Encircle. We started off with a young team, and over 12 years, watching them grow has probably been one of the best parts of my career.
So, what brought you from like the world of BlackBerry into restoration technology? How did that happen?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because I'm always looking. I'm a problem solver, and
Yeah.
my wife constantly tells me, "I'm not telling you this so you can solve my problem. I just want you to listen." That's a common occurrence in our
Oh.
household, and I'm just always looking to solve a problem. This problem in the insurance industry has been around for decades.
Mhm.
It's a complex ecosystem where you've got your insurance companies who are the actuarials, the accountants, the lawyers. And then you've got all the service providers that are more tactile, hammer and nails, let me get it done kind of work. And there's been that disconnect. So going back to 1987, my roommate was writing software in our living room for the insurance industry. And funny story, that same insurance company only switched off that platform last year because they're actually a customer of Encircles as well. Yeah, believe it or not, it's scary. Still green screen usage. Uh, uh, yeah, very shocking, but also funny to tell the story.
1980. Well, all right. So,
Yeah.
um, what led you from what problems did you see in the industry? You just kind of talked about it a little bit that led you to think, okay, there needs to be a software in this space. And then what did Encircle start as? What problem was it solving in its infancy? Because I'm sure, I mean, I know it's evolved significantly to what it is today with Hydro and then different photo documentation capability. I know that it's evolved significantly. So where did it start as?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started as inventory, but if I could take you back to when I was at BlackBerry, my old roommate was still building software for the insurance industry, both on the policy management and claims side. And so the disconnect of, him being frustrated why he can't get accurate data into his system, which had really good complex reporting for the actuarials to write up their underwriting tables. But it needs accurate inputs in order to get good outputs. Um, a decade at BlackBerry gave me the experience on the mobile side and gave me insights as to where the evolution of the smartphone was going and around the camera, how all of that technology could leverage the camera as a major communication medium. We went early days BlackBerry where every company was afraid of the security elements of having a camera in the phone. We don't want a camera in the phone to the camera being what has
It.
really driven a lot of innovation, right?
Yeah.
Because how many video chats do we do now? Think about where we'd be during COVID without, video chats and cameras in the phone. So that was the opportunity to say, okay, we can actually have an impact on this industry because visuals is the one thing that could actually bridge the gap between these two disparate groups.
Hmm.
And at that time, 2012, you had, I'm going to say it was the iPhone 3 and the Samsung Galaxy S2, very
Yeah.
early stage with rudimentary cameras, but they were good enough to actually start capturing photos and to be able to move that in real time over the air. And so the whole genesis was how do we use visuals to communicate a story
Hmm.
between all of the parties in the property claims process? And it's super complex. And so, you know, once you have this platform, it's okay, where's your thin edge of the wedge into this ecosystem, which the bare bones is the policyholder, the restoration contractor, and the adjuster.
Hmm.
So who's going to
Yep.
be the first to want to buy our product? Because that's what you got to find. And we said, okay, adjusters, the adjusters, they have to settle the loss. They're licensed to get this done. That's the perfect entry point. And uh, and what we decided was, before we go there, let's start with the policyholder. And we thought contents was the biggest pain point. And so
Hmm.
we created a contents documentation platform and put it out for free to policyholders because every insurance policy states that you must have in home inventory in order to leverage your policy. Only about 3% of policyholders actually do anything about it. And those that do are super passionate. So we got to cut our teeth there. It didn't prove to be a revenue generator. We gave it away as just a free service. But that same process is what we then took to the adjusters. But the adjusters were hesitant to use technology, very old school, and even back then, an aged population.
Hmm.
What turned out to be the biggest need was the restoration contractors
Yep.
because they were just struggling with documentation. They had huge liabilities around contents and damage because you went into this home, did the work, and you damaged my fridge, you damaged my antique table. And so that's where we landed. We didn't actually change the product or really pivot. It was really finding out where is the thin edge of the wedge into this complex ecosystem.
Yep. Okay, you sent me a picture or a couple pictures from I think what was your debut into the industry, maybe at a PLRB in was that in 2012? So what was it like when you first entered the industry then? And I'm curious about PLRB, like did it look the same as it does today with the big, I mean, in our space, I think that's the show that has the biggest booths, the biggest kind of everything.
Mhm. It's scary. The trade shows look almost the same. In fact, you can see the Puro Clean banner right behind it. And so it took us a couple of years to build a platform. So by the time we were at PLRB, it was 2014,
Okay.
and that was in Maryland. So we had a good solid year of homeowners doing home inventories, and we had thousands of them done. And in between there was a hurricane in Puerto Rico where an eye doctor had a mansion and it got destroyed by the hurricane. And he had a full documentation within Encircle and was able to submit his claim within 2 weeks and get paid out. And he literally put it out everywhere. He was just so ecstatic. So it was a feather in our cap. Wasn't a revenue generator, but hey, we were doing our part for the community. It felt good. And then, sort of leverage some of those stories at PLRB.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, PLRB in 2014, and we had what we called the hobo's kitchen. So I hope you throw up this picture.
I will.
Uh, I got to tell you the story about building this hobo's kitchen, but this multicolored kitchen allowed somebody to come in and we could give them a device or they could download the Encircle app and document the stove, fridge, a microwave, washer, dryer, all the different appliances with model numbers, serial numbers. And at the time, we'd actually pull up a manual and details on it, as well as any recalls on the product. Um, which we
Hobo.
thought was really cool. And it was a
Yeah.
good demo. And people still remember the Hobo's Kitchen from that show, even today when we go to PLRB.
Hobo's Kitchen. I love it. So what did it look
Yeah.
like after that PLRB? Like, was that like, did that feel like, okay, now we have people that are noticing, now we're starting to hopefully make money because so far you've done a lot for free. So, Hopefully, it's pretty soon you're starting to make revenue here. When did the tide turn?
2015. So what we realized at PLRB, there was lots of interest, but anybody who's tried to sell into insurance, it is a long, long road. So we started the engagements with dozens of carriers in the US. And yeah, and it just seemed to go on and on. And we felt, okay, there's got to be a better way. At the show, we did meet the Bureau claims. We met several restorers who were very interested in what we did. But there were some elements of the platform that they needed us to build out. And
Sure.
so from 2014 to 2015, we really started to focus in on the restoration industry. Instead of just being a generic product, we started really leaning towards, okay, this is the thin edge of the wedge. This is where the real pain is. And this is a group that we could really engage with. And so the turning point came in 2015 when we really had something for the restoration industry.
And what was going on in the industry at that time? If I think of trends for the last maybe 2 years currently, it's, M&A and consolidation. It's hiring is a big problem. Getting paid is a problem. What were the trends then?
So M&A wasn't a big deal, but
Yep.
getting paid has always been a big
Yeah.
deal in this industry. Um, we were really at the basics of, hey, just get your basic documentation in within 4 or 5 days, or even, back then, and we had the wildfires out in Fort McMurray.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
that really took off for us because their restorers, even though the networks were down, they were able to, document the full property, generate reports, and when they got back, they were just sending off reports instead of actually typing out reports in the camp where Wi-Fi was egregiously slow.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a few of those events that really helped us to sell the show and sell the value proposition of field documentation. Prior to that, what you saw was all job management and CRM. A lot of large companies felt they could build it on their own. You had Dash, you had PSA out there, and everybody thought that, oh, mobile was easy. We'll just put this as an adjunct or a piece bolt on onto our job management. Coming from BlackBerry, I knew how hard mobile technology is to build, and especially getting the workflows right for this complex industry where there's no standard process in the field because every job has its own unique situations. I remember back in probably late 2013 going in with a restoration contractor to burned out homes. And I mean, these were bad fires in, very expensive homes and doing the documentation in Canada in the wintertime. This is cold, damp, ice,
Mm,
smelly, just nasty conditions that I had to document excruciating details around this property doing contents. And so these are big homes. So you're talking
yeah.
big packouts.
Yeah.
And I learned a ton about you may think that there's a best path to do it, but once you're in there, that goes out the window. It's you just have to get it done and figure out a way. And so this level of flexibility in the user interface on mobile makes it really complex to do. And then you add in contents, moisture, photo documentation, floor plans, and the breadth of the field documentation tools that you had to have. And yeah, it's a big undertaking that quite a few tried, and a lot of groups failed to hit the mark. We're very fortunate that we only had the field to focus on, and I'm glad we made that decision early on.
Was that difficult early on to find kind of your niche and your channel and say this is it and we're sticking to it and not try to be kind of a jack of all trades, solve all the problems?
We knew right from the beginning we wanted to be mobile first because we knew how tough mobile was
Yeah.
and that it was going to evolve so quickly that if you put too much surface area in your product,
Yeah.
you're gonna get pulled into, other areas and not give enough focus to what is really critical. And we always said getting the data is the most critical things for restoration contractors. The back office can work their way through some complexities, but the field, it just has to be drop dead simple. And just look, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos from Hurricane Helene
Yes.
of restorers on site doing this work. I mean, these are heroes.
They
These
are.
like they're just going in home after home after home, and these homes smell. This is several days later. There's smell, there's temperature, humidity, and they're
Yeah.
just doing the work, and they're just loving being the heroes. Um, and so it's our job to make their job easier. We can't put complexity on the field when th this is the work that they're doing.
That's smart. I feel like it's
So.
hard for any entrepreneur, especially when you have a problem solver brain where you want to solve all the problems, to probably find your like, this is where we are, this is the lane we live in, let's try to stay in our lane. That's difficult because there are so many different ways that you can go with it. So,
And we said, we are going to create this category called field documentation. And there was a bunch of consultants that said, no, that's a really bad idea. It's all CRM. And we said, no, no, no.
no, no.
CRMs are notorious for having terrible mobile UIs on the front end. That's just common across CRM. We don't want to be associated with that. We are best of breed field documentation, and we're going to create an open AI, API
Yep.
that anybody can integrate with. Obviously, we maintain all of the security protocols, but it's the customer who owns the data, and they can decide where those points of integration need to be. And what we knew was this is going to change over time as innovation grows and AI comes into play. Um, we're going to have to adapt, and the easiest way for us to adapt is to allow others to innovate outside of our world-class capabilities and then integrate with them. And our point was they're going to want to integrate because we've got the valuable data that needs to be in their system. Similar to my buddy who was creating the policy management claim system, data was the fail point. It was the Achilles heel, and we can
Hmm.
solve that for so many platforms. So it wasn't easy to stick to our guns because you had a lot of noise. Everybody
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, we can do exactly what Encircle does," but the proof is in the pudding. Put it into test in the field in a cat situation, and then tell me.
In a cat situation, I can't believe everything that, yeah, North Carolina and Tennessee and everybody is going through there. So
Oh, it's horrific,
it is
horrific.
horrific. And I'm praying that this next storm that's kind of brewing doesn't go anywhere near that direction because I can't even fathom. Um, okay, so fast forward to we're in 2024 now, so 12th anniversary. Sorry, I had all my notes. I don't know where these numbers came from, but anyway,
No worries.
what happened? Um, okay, so how big is your team today?
So we're right around 100 people.
Okay. And what did it
And we've been at for about, a year, year and a half. So we're
okay.
on this plateau about to scale again. So we've spent the past year really focusing, I don't mind sharing with
Yep.
everybody. We're a pretty open company. We've really retooled our back end infrastructure to help us scale.
Yep.
As you're building technology, especially with the surface area we have on our platform, your code base just grows enormously. And all of that code has an impact on performance. So you're scaling customers, scaling jobs, your code base is growing. At a certain point, you have to stop the car to change the wheels. And that's been the past 12 months. So we kind of just really focused and I mean our customers are so loyal, but they're like, hey, you need to do something about this. And so I'm proud of our team. We really focused. It's been a ton of hard work, and it didn't look like we were innovating at all because it's all in the back end hidden from customers. But I think what the next couple of years will show is that what we did was we enabled ourselves to innovate even faster for our customers. And it's a painful, big investment to do it, but you're not doing yourself any favors or your customer any favors by ignoring those issues.
That is absolutely true. So how do you decide now with a team that big, how do you decide what direction to innovate in? I know you had Hydro that launched maybe a couple of years ago now, and you've had
Mhm.
some other innovations since then. So how do you decide like this is a good direction to go? Let's explore this opportunity. And then how do you decide also what to throw out? Like we've talked about this, but I just don't think that this is the right road for us to travel.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of code to throw out. Every platform, you can't build perfect every time.
Sure.
We're always looking at components in our platform to get rid of. What makes it hard is oftentimes you'll have a very small subset of customers that figured out how to use that,
Hmm.
ineffective piece of software that you built and getting them off of it because they've already built routines around it. I mean, the craziest routines, but it's still their routine. And it's really hard for restoration contractors to retrain their people in the field.
Hmm.
So to get rid of that code is you're working with your customers, you're trying to get them off onto something new. You need to migrate the data. There's a lot to think about there. So we're constantly doing that. But how do we figure out where to go? The nice thing is about our field data focus is it's all about the data that helps the restorer clearly articulate the cause of loss, resulting damages, the work that needs to be done, and the why. Why did we do it this way? Most of the disagreements with the adjuster or the reviewer is on the why.
Hmm.
Think about news. If you're watching a news program and you didn't have the voiceover, if all you were doing was watching the photos, even if it was 360 room views, what's that telling you? You need that context.
Yes.
So everything that we are building has to have the context that goes along with it to have a complete story. And we think that that'll have the biggest impact on utilizing AI to review those files. See, our view is that the carriers are spending, I mean, way more than contractors on AI on the review side. But when they create the rules, because AI has to be based off of very clear rules,
Hmm.
there are liabilities for them creating rules that go offside of OSHA, that go offside of the IICRC. So I think this is going to be really good for the industry as long as the restorer has all of their data sets aligned. They get to do a review utilizing AI to go, okay, I've got everything set up to justify this invoice, and then pass it through to the insurance company within hours or a day. So it's about expediency,
Hmm.
accuracy, and clear communication. That's what we focus on all the way, like everything we talk about in our product development meetings. And it's connecting the dots for the whole ecosystem.
Okay, so this was a good segue because you were recently on a panel at an RIA AGA event, and we were talking about AI. So I'm curious, in the discussions that I've had with restorers, often the first question I get is like, I don't even know where to start. I understand like there are these pie in the sky ways I can use it, but I don't even know where to start with AI. So what is your recommendation when a restorer comes to you and says, I don't even where do I start? What do I do?
Well, with any technology, the most important thing is give yourself a chance to play around with it to get rid of that fear. Everybody first has this fear of technology. What if I do this? What might happen? Well, start with using what we call large language models like ChatGPT, Writer, where you can provide a text-based input or have it look at your website and say, what do you think? What could I do to improve my website? Think about these AI agents as an expert in any field who is right there sitting next to you. And because you have to task it with something, think about what would you ask this expert next to you? And I'm literally ask it anything.
Hmm.
If there's even a problem, how would I restore this?
Yep.
Have fun with it and see the responses that come back. Uh, and you'll be amazed. If you're paying for an AI program and you're not a CFO, put in some of your financial documents and say, summarize these financial documents for, the month of January and tell me where I can improve. And you'll be shocked at what it comes out with. And the amount of time savings is immense. I use it all the time just on the, large language models to, whether I'm drafting messages to the company, because I can be terse. As a CEO, you've got a lot going on,
Yep.
and you may come across as, very short and terse. I'll write up a message and I'll say, make me sound really nice and excited about where we're going.
Yep.
And it'll take the context of what I wrote, but just make it so much more appealing to the audience. And again, to me, it saves me an hour right there. And it's something that's very important. So play around with it. You can't go wrong. In fact, we used to tell people in our training classes, where they were afraid to hit a button and encircle. It's like, well, hit it and see what it does. Your phone's not going to blow up. Go ahead, test it. And then once the fear of what if goes away, then they start learning and applying it, and then you just grow your usage over time. But you got to start somewhere, and just like any technology you've learned over your lifetime, once you get started, you start finding the values in your life, and you just expand the usage of it.
Yep. I like it. We're not in the world of typewriters where if you backspace, you can still see the letter that was there. You can Apple Z it or whatever and go back. It's going to be okay. I like that. You're not going to break anything. Okay, I want to pivot a little bit. I want to keep talking about Encircle, but I want to talk about the culture of the company that I think you've helped create over the years. I've gotten to know a number of your team over time, and the Encircle team always seems happy. And I know that there's a family element that you've built into the company as well that maybe isn't even so much talked about or realized by the industry, but there is a family dynamic behind it. So talk a little bit about the culture and what you view the culture to be today and how it's gotten to be kind of this like vibrant, healthy, exciting place to work.
Great. When we started, our core values were humility, intelligence, hard work, and trust. Without humility, you just can't learn. And
Yep.
when you're building a product company, if you're not humble, you're not going to listen to the nuggets of value your customers give to you when they tell you your product sucks. And you go, and then you turn your ears off. That's when you should turn your ears on and say, "Oh, explain it to me. Help me understand why." Uh, and so humility is number one. You just have to bring your brain to work every day and do the best you can. That's the intelligence. Apply the information around you. Be open to learning from other people. You don't get anywhere without hard work. That is just a fundamental baseline. And trust, again, you don't get anywhere without building trust. It really is terrible when you're always wondering, can I believe this person? Will this person deliver? I come from an angle of just try. If you're around good people, you trust that they're going to pull through. They've got your back, you've got their back. And I think that served us really well. And I think those core values are what restorers appreciate about my team. There's nobody who is lazy. We've increased our support because of Hurricane Helene. We asked our support group, can you work weekends? Can you be available throughout the night, 24/7, for these restorers that were responding to help rebuild their communities? And our team jumped at it and said yes. And so just a can-do attitude. And one of the reasons for building Encircle, number one, I wanted to solve a problem, but it gave me an opportunity to work with my family. Now, my kids didn't have to stay with the company. So my daughter Brooke and my daughter Sierra and my wife Judy. But I really wanted them to see what it's like to be an entrepreneur and build a company because they've grown up with me working night and day, building four companies, scaling BlackBerry with a great crew there. So and they always ask the question, how can you be so passionate about solving a problem? And then when they joined Encircle, the nice thing is, well, number one, this is a phenomenal industry, and the number of restorers whose families are in the business. I mean,
Yes.
I just think Ben Looper with his kids, which
Yep.
is just a phenomenal group. And you look at the culture he's built. I
Yes.
think when you have your family in the business and people see you as real, and my family works, they're super hardworking, just the hard and there's no nepotism whatsoever. And I think when our employees see that and that we really enjoy working and doing good work and supporting our customers, it rubs off on everybody else. Doesn't mean there's not, tough situations where there's a few times that I wanted to throw in the towel. There's no doubt about it. This is not an easy industry, and there's a lot of frustration dealing with elements of this industry that are just nonsensical.
Yes.
But overall, I've had a great run with working with my daughters, and my youngest daughter is just a superstar in our marketing team on demand gen. And then, of course, I've got some young employees that are probably the sons that I never had, Dave and Chris,
Yep.
and just phenomenal. Dave came to us straight out of university. He's now VP of revenue. Within 7 years, he just scaled his career and is just an outstanding individual and just got married a week and a half ago. And Chris Gilbronson, who is on our customer success team, who's the director of our customer success, again, came out of university and has grown. So watching my family grow and be passionate about serving our customers, and then watching the young individuals that come into our company and stick with us and really run that whole gauntlet and learning curve of building and scaling a company is just a tremendous privilege for me to see.
Okay, so I have one more question, maybe, because you just teed up marketing, and I will say when vendors in the industry ask me what works the best, Encircle is one of the top examples that I give of like understanding how to market to the industry. And part of that is because you take a totally educational approach. It's not so much the product pushing, it's the educational approach. So I'm curious if it's always been that way, or if that's something that evolved and your marketing team learned over the years that that's what's worked. And so then you've gone more that route. Um, how did that transpire?
I've always taken the approach that if you're going to be best of breed with your technology, you also have to be a thought leader in the industry.
Hmm.
And those two things together will make your product a lot more impactful.
Yep.
So when I started working with Chris Rosnowski, who I love to death, and he's going off to do the profitable restorer, he's so passionate about helping restorers build solid businesses and succeeding.
Yep.
It was really him that allowed me to move forward on that thought leadership because he was passionate about it. Like
Hmm.
he lived and breathed helping restorers. So he was the foundational element. And then, of course, we had Ken Larson and other experts that came in and help us out. And they're just as passionate as we are with helping this industry because what we saw early on was there's so much lack of industry knowledge and education in this industry because they're just constantly working.
Yeah.
These are the hardest working people out there. And to get them to stop and fly somewhere to take a course for continuing education credits is tough for them. So we said, is there something we can do from the industry that doesn't take away from trainers? Because we need the trainers in there to be able to make, their revenue and do their job. So this was an adjunct that we put together and we will always do. So our webinars, we work
Mhm.
and help promote really good other technology companies, and then the utilization of those tools. So yeah, it'll be something we continue to focus on.
I figured as much. Okay. Before we wrap it up, I'm curious your take on the industry today and the trends that you're seeing. Are there any trends that you think are maybe on their way out? Are there things you see on the horizon that you think will come more onto restorers' radars in the next few years? What do you think?
Well, number one, the trend of building your own platform is definitely on its way out. Thank goodness. I
There's a
think
lot of that.
millions and millions of dollars have been lost due to that. I think there's a trend towards integration
Hmm.
of platforms, but I will tell you, it may look like there's a bunch of us companies that don't want to integrate, but to be able to create APIs, you have to have a fully baked platform. Uh, and there's a lot of companies like Phoenix and DryEase or Legend Brands that have these platforms that have been building them out for a while that are now able to expose the API so that we can connect the dots. So I think over the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot of connections come in, and address some of the issues, whether it's remote monitoring, whether it's you know connecting with field documentation, the CRM. I think the move is to allowing for rich integrations because it's all about the data. And you need the data to have its full context of, date stamps, geolocates, who captured the information to flow through the whole train of systems in order to get the right outcome. So I'm happy that that trend is taking hold. There are still a lot of legacy platforms that struggle to put the changes in effect. I know they're making the investment, but these are big investments because they got to go deep into their code. This is foundational changes they've got to make in order to enable it. And I'm proud that the industry is moving in that direction. Not fast enough for me and a lot of restorers, but it is happening and it'll feel like this all came about all at once. But
Mhm.
it's been a lot of time under the covers, a lot of building. It's like AI. AI has been around for decades. But it was a bunch of elements that came together, the amount of data, the NVIDIA chips that allowed it, so the processing power. Uh, there's just a whole bunch of things that came together that have now allowed this massive sea change across all industries. And we'll see that in restoration over the next 2 years. And this idea of I can do it all in one platform is now going away. Something we've said since the beginning. There's no way. We knew mobile better than anybody. We're like, yeah, there's no one system that could possibly serve the needs of this complex industry where there's no standard workflow
Mhm.
on every single job.
Well, you've definitely been talking about integrations for a while. You and I have had conversations, done podcasts, there's been articles. So if you want to find more about Paul's take on integrations, there's many resources on that, especially on CNR. So go take a look. Okay, before we wrap it up, I love to ask people to share stories. You've been in the industry 12 years now. It's in my head, 12 years now. So I'm curious a favorite story. It can be anything. It could be with your team, it could be at a trade show, it could be a loss maybe you were on in the early days when you were figuring out the software, anything, like a favorite story from your tenure so far.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
The
That's
favorite story has to be my co-founder, Ronick Raval. He was young, still in university when we started Encircle, by the way.
okay.
He came out of the University of Waterloo Velocity Program, which is the elite program for software engineers.
Okay.
And we were down in San Francisco. And we were working with some early stage venture capitalists. And in between, he said, "Hey, I've got to stop and write my final exam." I'm like, "What do you mean you got to stop and write your final?" "Yeah, I got a final exam." I said, "How many classes did you go to?" He said, "Oh, I've been to one class. Don't worry about it." So we stopped by a Starbucks. In 1 hour, he wrote his final exam, aced the exam, and then we went on to our next VC pitch. And yeah, just
Sounds right.
amazing young individual. I was blown away. But that's the type of individual he still is. He comes in, saves the day when needed, and he's just been a pleasure to work with over the past 12 years. But we've also thrown some epic parties now. Being 100 people, it's harder to throw cool parties, but we used to have the summer parties at my house. Judy and I would host everybody and their spouses, and we'd throw just an incredible dinner and then a evening fireworks show. So I'll never
Oh,
forget Chris Rosnowski with his little daughters and his wife Anastasia. And Chris wanted to help me light the fireworks off in the field behind us while everybody was in our yard. And when you're doing big fireworks, you have to do them in sequences. I
yep.
probably didn't explain that well enough to Chris. And so, it's dusk and we're going to light them off. And I went and lit one, and Chris quickly went over and lit probably four or five of them. And I'm like, whoa, 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 as
Right.
the sky's lighting up. No, we did let our neighbors know this is all happening. And I'll never forget one toppled over. Chris and I dove for the sides. It hit the side of my pool house, hit my neighbor's house. They weren't home. And we had a good laugh over that after we realized everybody was okay. We took a few more precautions later on. In fact, we took the lighter out of Chris's hands for future events, but I love him to death. And we had yeah, great parties, great events. It's all about the people.
It is.
Everything comes down to the people that I've had an opportunity to work with and to see them flourish and and make their impact.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's such a great industry with many great people, and then the teams that you built. Yes, it's everything. So, Paul, congratulations on 12 years. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure running into you at shows and all of the things. So, thank you for being here, and I look forward to catching up with you again more soon.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, and love to be on this podcast anytime you're inviting me.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.